From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. We continue our summer series presenting segments from our coverage of the first 6 months of the regime and the resistance. I hope you're finding this review and perspective has some value for you in our fight going forward. This episode features clips from March 27th, episode 516. It starts with a little news on the Signalgate incident. You remember that. But we spend the bulk of the program on specific ideas for the resistance taken from the classic The Activist's Handbook. Here it is. I want to talk about direct action today. I pulled out a couple books off my shelf, most notably The Activist's Handbook by Randy Shaw. I went through it, I highlighted a few things, and I just thought I'd share them with you. Because we are at a point now, we've been saying for weeks, direct action is what we need. And rallies and marches are great, but really it's only one piece of the puzzle. So I want to talk about that at length today. The big story of the week, that's of course the Orange Menace clown car cabinet conducting war over a public messaging app, putting American servicemen and women into grave danger, possibly, and then them lying about it. Of course, most of them, at least for sure, Pete Hegseth should be fired, Secretary of Defense. Steve Witkoff, the guy who was in Russia during this meeting with his little cell phone, is a real estate guy. He's got zero political experience or expertise, let alone anything about international security or, my God. Yeah, he's the designated Putin boy. And he's in on the meeting, on his phone, unprotected, in Russia. Jesus. This whole use of the private platform, private platforms like Signal, it's right in Project 2025. It's in those training videos that they distributed. Yeah, it's always been part of the plan because they wanted to avoid any public records. There are pretty substantial rules, policies, and more importantly, law. These kinds of communications by law have to be preserved for the archives. And they know that full well. So using something like Signal isn't just reckless, it's entirely 100% intentional for that purpose. Because they want to do things behind closed doors. And if you see these training videos, if you read Project 2025, they're just blatant about it. That's the thing about Project 2025. They hide nothing. It's just right there in black and white. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens with that story. It's moving fast. And for me, the bottom line is just more proof, as though we needed it, that they're not serious. They're just jokes. Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA. If you remember his story, back in the first Trump administration, he was nominated as, what was it? I think it was Director of National Intelligence. I forget the position. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And Congress just wasn't having it, including most Republicans. It's like, no, he's just a hack politician, extreme right-wing member of Congress with no real experience in anything except being a loudmouth. Just not a serious person. And he was laughed out of that position as nominee for DNI. And then the Orange Menace, in the last year of his first administration, brings the guy back, manages to get him through. So he had like less than a year in that job. And that's the total of his experience. And now he's the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. He's a joke. He's like the rest of them. All right. Let's talk about direct action. As I said, I pulled my copy of Activist Handbook off the shelf and gave it an extra read. So I just want to look at this today. The recent movements that have gotten some real traction, Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, groups like PETA and Greenpeace, Code Pink, over the last many years, able to really make some noise. There have been successes over the years that we can look to for inspiration and for ideas. And I think we're absolutely at the time now where we need to start doing things like stopping traffic. Disruption. That's the key word. We have to be disruptive. Shut down factories. Shut down places of business with sit-ins, with die-ins, and my favorite, teach-ins, which is basically a sit-in where you invite experts on the issue and information is shared. As long as you're going to be sitting there occupying a building, you might as well learn something while you're there, right? Learn about the issue you're protesting. Learn about alternatives for when we win. There were great protests over in Madison, Wisconsin state capitol, during the Governor Scott Walker years when he was attacking unions. There were daily sing-alongs in the rotunda. You know, make it fun. Have a sing-along. It was great. I love the idea of flash mobs, which this sing-along thing sort of was. You just show up unannounced all of a sudden before security can do anything about it. They look around and, oh, the rotunda is filled with 500 people and they're all singing, "This land is my land," you know? So these are all just very simple ideas, simple direct actions that people have taken over the years, and they've worked. Occupy congressional offices. Occupy state capitol buildings, other government offices. As I said, rallies and demonstrations are always great. They're especially good, I think, when you've chosen your location, right in front of the White House, right in front of the Supreme Court building, right in front of the government building that Elon is trying to bust into with his Lost Boys. And we saw that story. He couldn't get in because the protesters got there first. Holding vigils. Those are powerful. Those are visually powerful. Holding a vigil, nighttime, quiet, everybody with a candle. Yeah, it's good video. Good video for the news people. The Activist Handbook used several case studies. In one of them, I forget which, they scattered thousands and thousands of fake bills, $1, $5, and $10 bills, bearing slogans of the movement. And some of this might sound silly, but when you put it all together, really effective. And again, these case studies are in the book because, in the end, they were victorious. There have been mass die-ins. We've seen that so far in this movement. Chalk outlines. And there are certainly issues in our current movement that are life and death. Oh, they're absolutely life and death. We know for a fact that the gutting of USAID has already resulted in deaths. We know for a fact that the gutting of public health initiatives is going to cost lives. In some of these movements, constant street theater, which I think is wonderful. Again, attention. We are in an attention world. It's been called the attention economy. It's also absolutely vital for media coverage, which we're not getting. Yeah, constant street theater. I'm a great admirer of groups like the San Francisco Mime Troupe, been around forever, doing political activist theater. One of my university professors back in the day was a former Gorilla Girl activist street theater troupe. Great admirer. What else can you do? Disrupt church services. Lay down in the aisles. Chain yourself to the pew. Oh, the old chain yourself thing. The Atlanta Cop City demonstrators were big on that. Sierra Club is big on that. Chain yourself to a nuclear reactor. There are just so many tried and true techniques. This is the kind of stuff we need. We're under attack. I'm ready to start seeing it. Here's an idea that I liked a lot. If there's some sort of conference or convention happening where you've already got this sort of committed audience, they're all in on sort of the same big thing, right? Like we recently had the CPAC conference, the conservatives, or maybe you'll have a particular industry getting together that you want to protest, if it's oil and gas or fast fashion, which is a horrible thing, needs to go away. Yeah, find that audience that already has some sort of role in the issue. So storming a convention center, crashing events. Mount the stage. Announce your grievances. Announce your plan. Heckle speakers. And all of a sudden you got this public dialogue going, even though you weren't invited, right? You got this direct confrontation that they're not ready for. Of course, you got the regular phone calls, which we should be doing daily. The whole thing is you got to overwhelm your target and stop them from doing normal business. You have to disrupt normal business. That's where we are now. So those are just a few ideas that I highlighted from the Activist Handbook. Now, you can't do this on your own. It's all about organizing. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Plenty of organizations out there. Find one, join it. Because we need people organized. We need to get in line with office holders, stakeholders. We have to build coalitions. A good example of that is, say you do hold a sit-in or a die-in or some sort of direct action occupation. You got to come in with some specific demands. And it's really helpful if you're already in alliance with a member of Congress who's written a particular bill that you can advocate for. So you're not just yelling about, oh, you're bad and please be fair to us. Because let's be honest, that's where most of us are. We're not experts. So that's why it's so important to find the group, join the group, share expertise, learn while you're doing it. And yeah, this alliance is really powerful. That way you can get up at your protest. You can say, pass House Bill number 23, which says ABC XYZ. We won't leave until at least 20 members of Congress pledge to support that bill. Yeah, specific demands. That's what you can do when you're organized. Organizations and movements can attract young people, which is so... I can't think... I'm no historian, but just off the top of my head, I can't think of one movement that went anywhere without young people. Absolutely have to attract young people. I'm an old guy. I'm looking at an old book. So, of course, all of these ideas can be updated, but they are solid ideas. And they're proven winners. The whole sort of old-fashioned idea of think globally, act locally certainly applies. Local direct action on national issues would get you press coverage. Going through an organization will attract new participants. We got to grow the movement. Talked a minute ago about the audience you're after. One good strategy, for example, I forget which one it was. I think it was ACT UP in San Francisco during the AIDS crisis. Big flash mob at the Opera House disrupted a performance of the opera. The audience was chosen carefully. An economically powerful crowd. So you publicly confront powerful people in business, in politics, in the arts. The point is choosing your target, and an organization can help you do that. And it takes some planning, and it takes some smarts. You got to rigorously analyze your choice of targets. Are you going to win any popularity contests doing this? No, that's not the point. A quote from the book, activists must sometimes use tactics that may not produce direct results, but that are necessary for organizational growth, morale, and development. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. So you choose your tactics carefully, you choose your targets carefully, but you don't let that paralyze you. You don't let that scare you. Take chances. Even if it doesn't work in the moment, it's going to inspire the people in your group. Actions that go too far, so to speak, do not necessarily damage the fundamental message. So don't be afraid. In one case, they talked about activists who raised a very uncomfortable fact during what was supposed to be more of a back-patting affair, as they put it. I can think of a perfect example. Last week when I went to the town hall meeting of my representative, Gwen Moore, that's kind of what it was. It was a back-patting affair. Everybody was kind of on the same page. Oh, they're bad, we're good, here's what we're trying to do. And it would have been great for an activist to stand up in that moment of everyone patting each other on the back with some very uncomfortable facts and saying, listen, we're not doing enough. Maybe we can do this, which actually kind of happened. There was one guy who stood up and raised a little hell, and I thought he was great. But I like that point. If you're choosing a target, maybe sometimes it's people on your own side who are a little too happy with themselves. And man, we've got a lot of that on the so-called left, or the Democrats, or the liberals, or the progressives, or whatever you want to call them. On this side of the spectrum, at least the sane people who aren't crazy MAGA weirdos, in our coalition, we have a lot of complacency and we'll have a lot of back-patting. So I think that's an important point. When you're strategizing, you want to force a response. I said earlier, if you catch them off guard, you force them to respond. And so, in turn, then you need to be well informed because they're going to challenge you. Well, you're just a protester. You don't know. So choose your role carefully. If you're really ready to go, if you're ready to have that debate on the fly in front of 1,000 people or 100 people or 20 people, by all means, you be the one shouting down the expert. If that's not you, then you be the one in the background coordinating logistics, right? So that's something else an organization can do. It can put people in proper roles. Yeah, this is a big thing, being able to force that response and being able to really know your issue. Knowledge is power. To acquire and disseminate information should always be a big part of any plan. That's why I keep harping on teach-ins. I love it. Also disseminating information not only to each other, but of course to the press. Another point I think is important. Organizations need more than what you'd call paper memberships. You can have a lot of sympathy from the public. You can have memberships. You can even have paid dues. That's all fine. That's all great. But to have direct action, you have to attract the people with the energy. Again, the young people, the ones who are really going to get out there onto the street, into the buildings, into the breach of these protests, demonstrations, and direct actions. It's all well and good to have 10,000 paid members, but if they're just sitting at home, direct action needs people, needs bodies. You and I have talked a lot, and I continue to believe that even though we're in this very digital age, I believe strongly that no movement is going to be successful unless and until we put our bodies on the line. Digital strategies, promotion, there are all sorts of ways we can use that world. But I think it's a very limited proportion of the movement. So that's why I'm not really shy about using an older book like the Activist Handbook. I think most or all of this is totally legit, totally relevant. We need bodies, minds, and souls. It's going to take some courage. Direct action takes courage. Muster it up. If you haven't got it, lick envelopes. We need everybody. No shame, no judgment. Make phone calls, write postcards. Just add your body to the number of bodies in the march. Hold your sign. Some of the more abrasive direct actions are going to take some real courage. Also, the many, many reasons we need to organize. It's the only way we're going to outlast the opposition. This is going to take some staying power. We can't rest until we win. Unless you want to live in a dictatorship, which is where we're rapidly headed. I say without exaggeration. So only through being organized can we create this kind of staying power. We have to outlast our opposition. And that's no small task because they've been at this for a very long time. It predates Reagan, but certainly since Reagan, the right wing has been working toward this moment. And they're feeling pretty fat and happy right now, celebrating some pretty big victories. And I can't blame them. They've had some pretty big damn victories. So the only way to have that kind of staying power is through organization and a constant barrage. Not just, one and you're done. No, a constant barrage of demonstrations, of rallies, of sit-ins, of boycotts. and others of the more sort of confrontational, direct attacks that we've been talking about. Whatever we do has to be meaningful. It has to be strategic and savvy. Takes some planning, takes some smarts, takes a coalition, takes some collaboration. And we got to have fun doing it. It needs to be fun. It needs to be exhilarating. We need to enjoy this. Back in the day, there were songs. Oh my God, the songs, the protest songs. This is before my time. Musicians, help us out. Let's all get singing the same songs again. But yeah, any kind of progressive organizations, constituencies, any kind of hope for social change, organizations need to have a good time. And they need to have a direct action component. It's all about direct action at this point. It's got to be the central instrument. We got to build networks so that, you have maybe a one-day big nationwide protest. But if you're organized and if you're spread out over the nation and you got chapters all over the place and you got small towns and big towns and rural places, and yeah, you have the big one-day national protest and then you have 1,000 follow-up protests the very next day. That you can do through organization. There was the example of that San Francisco movement I talked about, of the disabled folks. They had a sit-in that went 25 days. The authorities tried to starve them out. They wouldn't let anybody feed them. But different organizations were able to get food to them. And within a couple of weeks, Safeway, grocery stores, and McDonald's were bringing them food because they gained public sympathy. Yeah, it's all about alliances. You got the seniors, the Gray Panthers over here, and the youth group over here, an environmental justice group over there, and a prisoners' rights group over there. And you build coalitions, you build relationships. And then when it really hits the fan, you got people at your back. Create alliances with office holders. We got a handful of Justice Democrats and independents who will have your back. And they have inside power. They can help you disrupt. Yeah, in that San Francisco example, nobody broke ranks. All the different organizations held together. The administration couldn't pick off certain groups. Didn't work. And in the meantime, they couldn't conduct regular business until this issue was solved. Almost a month long, this sit-in happened. There's some 3D chess that has to happen too. You have to, in any negotiation, you have to give your opponent room to, give them an escape route. In other words, be able to know when to take the win and let your opponent off the hook with some dignity remaining. Yeah, it'd be fun to just crush your opponent every time, but if you get a win, you got to take it. And this is very strategic thinking. This is beyond what I could handle. I wouldn't be that part of the organization, probably. I'd be the guy behind the mic just yelling. That's more my role. One other strategy was to combine events. So in other words, maybe you have an ongoing sit-in, like this thing went for 25 days. And then one of those nights, a bunch of other folks have a vigil in front of the White House. And then you release a strong letter or a press release or letter to particular office holders. You have meetings with stakeholders. You have meetings with office holders. In other words, there's all these different things going on at the same time. So combine events. Modern advertising has taught us that to get your message across, you got TV ads, you got radio ads, you got digital ads, you got word of mouth, you got signs on the subway, signs on park benches, all these different platforms with the same message. Advertisers have known this forever. So let's do this thing. Let's do this. Some kind of small ball practical stuff. Sounds corny, but mottos and slogans work. Make America great again. It's a goddamn great slogan. Silence equals death. That was the ACT UP slogan in the fight against AIDS. So yeah, t-shirts, posters, stickers, handouts. I know we're in a digital age. Fine. You can have your memes all you want, and I'm not going to say they're not effective. But I want hand-to-hand physical contact. I've lived in both worlds. I've lived in the digital world. I lived in the 70s. Direct eye-to-eye contact, physical touch, hand me a flyer. We got to go old school. Yes, of course, we can have a digital component. I wouldn't think of dismissing that, but it can never replace real person-to-person contact. Let's finish with something we talk about a lot around here, and that's media attention. Massive police response will elevate the significance of any event you're in. Guaranteed media attention if you get the cops involved. Any sort of graphic artists, get out there. And here's where memes and social media can play a role, for sure. But yeah, graphics, creativity, slogans, not incidental at all, central. One of the reasons long-term action is important, like a sit-in, something, or an occupation, something that lasts a while, that can draw local and national media. You know, you're still there. The editors are looking for some new angle, some way to cover this. All of a sudden, they're talking with individuals. We're getting individual profiles. So yeah, long-term can attract media. One good strategy I read about organization, choose your subjects carefully. That is, who do you want to put on the front line? Who do you want being interviewed? Who do you want the photos taken of? They gave one example of a housing crisis where the action was people squatting in vacant housing. So they put mothers and their children in front of the cameras, not three big, tough, single guys, right? So be strategic on who you're putting in front of that microphone, in front of that camera. And you won't be seen as just a troublemaker, but you'll be seen as an advocate for a noble cause. That's what we have to break through. Not just angry people yelling and holding signs, but relatable people with a relatable cause. So, just a few ideas from Randy Shaw's classic, The Activist's Handbook. First written in the 96, I think, several updates over the years. And as I've said, I've lived in both worlds now, and this advice is solid. So find your organization, go to indivisible.org, go to 5050.one, lots of other organizations out there, and be part of it. Nobody's asking you to be a hero, but we got lots of room for heroes these days, if that's what you want to do. Again, stay in your lane, stay happy, have fun with this. That's the other thing, too, that needs to be repeated over and over and over again. The greatest part of this whole story is when you get organized with other people, you're going to be happy. You're going to be invigorated. You're going to be inspired. You're going to feel the humanity. And you're going to have fun. You've been listening to a best of episode of The Log featuring clips from March 27th, episode 516. Find all episodes at the website, charlespurcell.com, or on your favorite podcast platform. Follow on Substack and Blue Sky. Thanks to our home station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. All right, love you. See you out there.